Hey, this is Rob, aka Anomaly, back for the second part of the Q&A, guys. We're just going to get right into it. I have a lot of questions. Again, I received a lot of participation, a lot of support, a lot of input from you guys. I appreciate that. But we have a lot to cover, and also I'm going to do the drawing for the One's Customs keychains. I'm just going to basically take everyone's name that participated, throw it in a bucket or something that I can find, and just pull out 2 names, and those will get the items. But anyway, without further ado, we're just gonna get right into the questions and see what's popping. Another question from Ricky Bustle. And again, if I'm butchering these names, I really apologize for that, but it's just what I do, you know. So, very simple question here. He wants to know, how do you get in on a beta run? Some of us just don't know how to get on a run. So, you know, to collectors that have been in this for a long time, that may seem like a very easy and obvious question, but, you know, I know when I first came into the hobby, I had no idea what a run even was. It was a little different back then. There was no Facebook interaction, and it was only the freaks groups and all that. But basically, back then the artists weren't really communicating with anybody, you know. Not to say anything bad against Beto, but I remember like when I was like 2 years into the hobby, I messaged Beto. I never got a response from him. I was asking about the Pennywise, but things are very different nowadays. Everyone, you know, pretty much has access. So with that being said, all you really need to do is just obviously, if you know about the hobby, or if you're in one of the Facebook groups, I mean, that's the key, that's the foundation. And then from there, ask questions from veteran collectors. Find out who the artists are that you wanna buy from, whether it's a Beta or Ones, K. June, Rayman, whatever, Legio 7, whatever. Just message them, and most likely they'll get back to you. Pay attention to the groups, be active in the groups, and that way you can see if there's like listings and postings for runs and interest threads and stuff of that nature. Nowadays it's pretty easy. Anybody can basically get in on the run if they really want to. So that is that question right there. Try to answer these questions. Nice. All right, so this is a question from Saul Gomez. Question: do you think the future of the 1/6 horror will continue to be the same? Characters being pushed out. Most horror pieces are slasher related. Some artists do great work with concept pieces, aka One's Customs. Do you think collectors will start exploring more obscure slashers or focus on non-slasher icons? I think, honestly, man, I think the sky's the limit. I think every day the hobby is getting more popular. It's interesting because in the custom hobby, you would think that the hobby is getting smaller, more condensed, or kind of losing a lot of its steam, of its impact, because we have some artists that aren't doing it anymore like they used to. I mean, Rayman is not really doing it like he used to. K. June is, you know, every now and then, you know, a lot of artists that are doing it. You know, Chung Kinman, if I'm saying his name right, you know, he's doing some runs every now and then. It's just, you don't have a lot of artists just pumping out stuff constantly. Beto, you know, is stepping it up a lot. He's trying to release, you know, multiple projects yearly now. Ones, you know, he does some stuff every now and then, but it's, you know, very far in between, you know, figure here, figure there, and, you know, postings and stuff. So you would think that the hobby is losing steam in that regard, but the reality is that it's more popular than ever. People are spending money. People want these high-end custom figures, and it's hard to get things nowadays, and things are becoming more expensive, and things that you could get for cheaper or near retail, or maybe $100 or $2 above retail, you know, whether it's a One's piece, Beto piece, whatever. Now these things are going for like, you know, hundreds and hundreds of dollars, and sometimes even $1,000 or more above retail, even despite the COVID and all this economic stuff that's going on. So I would say, in terms of like, what's your question? Seeing, will we continue to see like slashes and stuff? I think we're going to continue to see whatever it is people are interested in, and especially with the advent of 3D printing and giving more artists the opportunity to kind of come into the game, I think the sky's the limit. I think, pretty much whatever people want it. Hopefully that answers your question, Mr. Gomez. All right, next question. This is a good one and very controversial question from David Tucker. Shout out CE Creations. Current commission going on right now. Part 9 remake. That's, in my opinion, along with his whole RZ line, Hobos, RZ 1s, 2s, whatever. Even the Nate, he's killing it. So shout out to David. His question is, why is recasting wrong when the artist doesn't have a license to that product? Doesn't an indie artist have to have a license? If not, why? Okay, I'm not a lawyer, okay? I did do a little bit of reading on this subject. What we're really talking about is the concept of fan art, okay? I've gotten into a ton of debates with people over this over the years, including my mentor, you know who you are. And there's a lot of people that have their own opinions of this. For instance, if you know anything about Beta Metalli and the origin stories of the Nate project and the Fluffy project and some of the hurdles that he had to overcome from the original licensors and stuff of that nature, that's an example of how fan art still is considered copyrighted material. It's what they call a derivative art. Fan art is a derivative of the original content in which it was created from. That's still a copyright. Now, here's the situation. If you have somebody that is, let's say a company comes out producing, 50,000, 100,000, 200,000 units of a character based off a license or a franchise that they don't have copyright for or licensing rights for, obviously that's just straight up copyright and they're going to be liable for suits and all that stuff. But if you have a small guy like a beta or ones that does 20 or 30 or 40 figures of a character that's based off of a licensed or copyrighted figure, there's still a potential that that's a copyright, absolutely. But is it going to be a problem necessarily? No. Of figures based off that license that are being produced, it's not a mass production entity. There's no shareholders. There's no stock. It's just a very, very small, tight-knit operation that isn't worth the time or day for anyone that actually owns the licensure to really to care much about. So technically, yes, it is a problem, and technically, if a owner of the license had a problem, people want to make the judgment, it's just 100 figures, it's just 30 figures, it's not a problem. Well, it is a problem. It's just a matter, but the reality is that is someone going to really waste their time attacking someone just because they're doing 30 or 40 figures and making a little bit of money in a custom hobby that is still pretty underground? That's very unlikely. So that's basically how I'm going to answer the question. So David Tucker's question more specifically is, why is recasting wrong when the artist doesn't have a license to that product? Doesn't an indie artist have to have a license? If not, why? Okay, again, very controversial topic. Going back to what I was copyrights and all that stuff, again, technically that's a copyright infringement. But now you're talking about an artist that is technically doing a copyright of original source material from a franchise and a license, now recasting the artist that initially is, so technically it's wrong on all ends. Technically it's wrong on all ends. I guess in this 1/6 hobby, it's kind of like etiquette. It's kind of like, we're all sharing a level of trust and understanding, and it's just set etiquette, set standards that we should follow. And I can't really think of a term that I'm trying to use, but basically what I'm trying to say is that technically, if, for example, One's Customs does a Part 7 head sculpt, that's his sculpt, he makes it, but yet it's based off the franchise. So in that example, yes, technically there's some issues with copyright. Is someone going to make a big deal out of it? Probably not. Okay, so that's that factor. And then let's say you have somebody else that takes one's head and recasts that head. Is that wrong? Technically, no. It's not wrong technically, because the original material technically is not right, or it's not justified. It's like from a etiquette and politics of the 1/6 hobby aspect, and from all of us just being adults and respecting each other's work, that's something that is like more morally wrong. Like that shouldn't happen. If one takes the time to do his interpretation of a Part 7 head sculpt, but then some other guy just takes his head and recasts it and then starts making money, yeah, that's morally, that's not right. Is it technically not right? I don't think so. I think it's every man for themselves essentially. But is it good for the hobby? Is it morally right? No. So that's just basically how I feel. There's no set rules. We have rules that we all live by and try to enforce amongst ourselves in this small, tight-knit community, but there is no set rules technically as far as I see. So that's basically how I'm going to answer that question. That was a great question, David. So next question from Tanelia Ayres. I hope I'm saying that right. Her question is, for how long do you think the 1/6 custom horror figures will still be a thing? I love horror. I've been collecting horror for over 20 years, so it's still my thing, and I think that applies to a lot of people. I don't think the horror sector is going anywhere anytime soon, because just for the simple fact that when it comes to horror, there's something about it that is unique and abstract that you don't see every day. And I think something that you don't see every day, whether it's the prosthetics, the makeup, or the creativity of the designs and all that stuff, it's intriguing for a lot of people. You don't see, typically that's going to always draw an interest. So for that aspect alone, I don't see the horror sector going anywhere anytime soon. And as a matter to the contrary, it's becoming even more and more popular, especially in the mainstream mass production sector for the 1/6 hobby. It's you got companies like Hot Toys and Sideshow doing more and more horror, and you got even some of the other companies, like some of the statue companies like Prime1 and doing horror stuff, PCS, etc. with the Myers. So horror isn't going anywhere anytime soon. So next questions. This question is from Ben Collectomaniac, good friend of mine's. If you guys don't know, he has YouTube. Check him out. Real good guy. Definitely has one of the best ones customs collection, horror collections that I've seen in the hobby. So shout out. He has a two-part question. First part is, has there been a piece that you've seen pictures of and had no interest in inquiring, then you either seen a video or viewed it in person and your mind changed completely? Yeah, that's happened quite often actually in this hobby. Believe it or not, the Part 3 Jason, I was a noob, granted, I was a noob. When I first saw that figure, I was like, it's too clean, it's too plain, it's too simple. I had absolutely no interest in that figure whatsoever. And then once I started seeing videos of it and seeing people, because around that time, that's when that figure just had came out and people were starting to display it and all that and do videos. And I was like, wow, actually, this figure actually is pretty cool, and I need to get it. But then it became almost impossible to find. Eventually I was able to get it, but definitely I would say that figure. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. There's a one-on-one Toxie that I have that I wasn't too particularly fond of, that I saw, but I've seen pictures of it, I think even the video, but I had no interest in it. But then when I received it in hand, my mind changed completely. There was a couple. I've had a couple of Part 7s in my possession. I've seen about 8 or 9 in hand, and I owned about 5 or 6. And a few of those I acquired just for the purpose of trade or selling, and when I received them, I was like, wow, this is really good. So it can be really tricky sometimes, that figure in particular, because if the person doesn't take really good pictures of it, it could really make it look pretty bad. But then when you see it in hand, you're like, wait a minute, this actually looks really good. So pictures sometimes you can't go by. You definitely can. And I'm pretty sure there's other figures that I have in my collection as well. But the Creep was another figure I had absolutely no interest in. My Creep, which is one of my favorite One Pieces in my collection. No interest in that figure when I saw a video or a picture. But then when I saw it in hand to do a review for it before I actually owned it, shout out to Dan Terezzo for letting me do that. I was like, oh my God, this is actually a pretty amazing figure. So hopefully that answers your question. And second question, do you feel the term grill is overused? I ask this because I've seen many people over the years call something a grill that then they sell it months later. What do you think the term grill means to you? Wow, that's a really good question. That's a very good question. Do I think the term grill is overused? Well, let me break this down. I think when it comes to the newer collectors, yes, I think the term is a little bit overused. I think when you come into the hobby, because the only thing you've seen is mass produced most likely, or something at a Walmart, shout out Lato, kidding, or whatever, like, you think everything is great. You think everything is great, and then once you spend a little time in the hobby, get a little wet, start seeing different examples, then that starts to change, and you start to become more selective, and then you can really start to differentiate between the grails and the gems, and then the not so good pieces. So yeah, for the newer sector, to newer collectors under 2 years, I do think the term is they get a sideshow whatever, or I'm not putting no names out there, but they get just a figure that is like, from an artist no one's ever heard of, like, oh my God, this is a grail. You look at it, you're like, oh, I don't know, man. But when it comes to more veteran collectors, more established collectors that have been in the hobby, I don't think the term grail is overused at all. I think for the most part it is. It's the case. There are definitely a lot of grails out here. For instance, like in my sector, horror. The Part 3 Jason, that is a grail. Part 6 Jason, grail. Fluffy, that is a grail. Some figures are gems, like Beetlejuice. I wouldn't call that a grail. I would call that more or less a gem. I would call my penny probably a gem. I don't know if it'd be a grail. Now the question is, which is the second part of your question, is what does a grail mean to you, or to me, or what is my definition of a grail? So my definition of a grail is something that everybody agrees categorically is like the best example, best interpretation, whether it's in terms of representation, quality, overall as a set, collectability, presentation, all that. I think it has to be something that everyone agrees unanimously that is on that level to be considered a true grail. That's in the general sense. On the individual sense, I think something's a grail to you, that something that truly radiates with you, and something that really brings you back to a time, and something that like for me, for instance, I'm OCD. I'm very OCD. So let's talk about the Part 7. I finally have a Part 7 that hits all the check marks for my particular taste. I like a Part 7 that that's tailored perfectly, draping pants, boots that are a particular type. I like good paint, good details, not too little exposure, not too much. Like, it's just like how everything is frayed, how certain things are cut, how thick it is, how it looks on the side. Like, I'm just very, very particular. If I have a figure, for instance, that is as OCD as I am, meets all my criteria, which is not easy, then for me, that's a grail. For me, personally. So hopefully that answers that question. So another question from Ralph Mouth. That's an interesting name. What movie / figures do you consider horror? Traditional Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, or more subtle Misery and Cape Fear characters? Well, everyone knows, or everyone should know, that I'm not a horror movie guru, and I'm not a movie guru at all. I don't watch a lot of films, not nearly as much as you would think I do for what I collect. Not just 1/6, but everything. So that's a tough question to answer. Basically, anything that has an abstract look to it, and or I guess, you know, people are getting killed, like in a you know, special type of setting, like, you know, dark, creepy. There's like, obviously the film is shot in terms of suspense and, you know, certain type of music bits and, you know, bloody, gory, like stuff of that nature. Like, for instance, like, I'll give you an example, like Beetlejuice, for instance, like a horror character, but it's more or less a comedy. I have a Beetlejuice in my collection, and I consider that a horror character, but because it blends so well with the characters that I currently have because of the look. But is it like a real horror movie? I don't know. So that's a tough one. Cape Fear or Misery? No. I mean, I would consider those more like thrillers or you know, thrillers and stuff like that, more suspense, but not really horror, like the, you know, the hack'em slashers and stuff. But so hopefully that answers your question. That's definitely not an area of my expertise, I can tell you that right now. So here's a question from Nick Young. As a newcomer, where do I start? How do I go about it? Little vague question, but I guess as a newcomer, again, the main thing that I'm going to reiterate is to ask questions. Ask questions, because in this hobby, especially right now, it's very high stakes, and it's definitely chess, not checkers. If you don't know what you're doing, you can lose a lot of money very, very quick, because there's a lot more options, there's a lot more alternatives, there's a lot more product, and, you know, a lot of it's legit, some of it isn't legit. I'm talking like recasters and stuff, or like this. So the thing is which is kind of a little bit off topic, but let's just say it like this. If I'm gonna spend $1,000 or $2,000 or even $3,000 or even $4,000 on a figure, which I have, and I got plenty of figures in my collection that I paid that for, ideally, I want that figure to its value to either be stagnated or to appreciate, which means go up in value, but never to depreciate, ideally. At the end of the day, I don't care if my figures are worth nothing. I could care less if I woke up tomorrow and my figures were worth zero. But ideally, I would like my figures to retain value, and that's the beauty about this hobby, is if you buy the right way and make the proper selections in conjunction with collecting to your desires and, you know, to what you like. For me, it's horror. You know, I collect for passion, but I also collect a catalog. So I don't collect everything I have in my collection. I'm not absolutely in love with my Ash, for instance. I'm not absolutely in love with, actually, I'm pretty much in love with everything, but Ash is probably my least liked figure in my collection, but it's a beautiful figure. I'm here to catalog, and I'm into the horror, so, you know, is what it is on that. But to go back to your question, so again, where do you start? Ask questions. 1/6 Horror is a great resource. Shout out to Victor. He's, you know, co-founder, and I'm an admin. Paul, Manzi, a few others, Ricardo, Graham, all that. So, you know, and then reach out to veterans like myself, Joe Biz, Paul Manzi, Magnus, Joe, whatever. Just reach out to people, and they'll lead you in the right direction. But if you're not asking questions, expect to lose a lot of money and a lot of your time. So hopefully that answers your question. All right, guys, so I'm trying to go through these questions super fast. Few more. Nate Stainham. I'm butchering that name horribly. But from Nate, do you think this 1/6 Horror Facebook group is the most fun and inclusive group in the hobby? I do. Maybe talk about it. Okay. Well, I do, actually. I think this is the only group of its kind, to the contrary. The reality is that horror has not always had the greatest reputation in this hobby for a lot of reasons. And I'm not going to necessarily go into all those reasons, but some of the big reasons is that you have a particular group of collectors, which I call elitist, that think that if something is not, you know, a $4,000 figure, or if it's not 100% handmade, or if it's not from an Asian artist, etc., that it's just not even worth looking at or talking about or mentioning, or if it's not a guy in some suit or whatever it is. So those type of people created that mindset that the horror realm is garbage because, you know, horror, you got a lot of blood, you got a lot of gore, and there's a lot more risks and liberties, for lack of a better word, that artists do with horror. And so I think it comes from that, and I also think it just comes from people, newcomers. When newcomers come into the hobby, they're typically gravitated towards horror, and then that, in a way, kind of puts a bad look when you have people that don't really know what they're doing, or they're customizing things, or they're comparing a mass production figure that's customized to something that came from an actual artist, and then, you know, it's just, and it puts a bad look on everything. So, but the bottom line is 1/6 Horror, our Facebook group, focus is on custom horror. But anything horror related, but particularly custom 1/6 horror. And yeah, I do think it's inclusive, and I think it's the greatest 1/6 horror custom group Facebook page on Facebook, personally. So, and I'm glad to be a part of it, and it's growing, and we have a lot of activity. So that's basically, I think I answered all my questions that I got from the initial post that I put. But I also had a few questions from people that messaged me privately, which is cool. So I think I got 3 questions from that. So let me load up my IG and see what's popping. So one question from, well, I don't even know this guy's name. I just got his IG, ANT209. That's what he is, ANT209. I don't know who that is, but he's a guy that has messaged me and you know, likes my videos and is giving us support. But his question is, what's the best advice you would give to any new collectors coming into this hobby? Well, actually, I just answered that question. So again, ask a lot of questions, and don't take chances. That's basically what I'm going to say to that. And then I got 2 other questions, and my last question is the one I'm the best for last, because this is a very important topic. So give me 1 second, guys. Let's see. So this question is from Michael Murray. Hopefully, again, I'm saying that right. His question is what is your favorite horror movie and why? 2-part question. Also, what horror character is your favorite and why? Favorite horror movie? Jesus Christ. I'm gonna have to go with the Jason franchise, the Friday the 13th franchise, just for the simple fact that it's what I grew up on. It's what I have my most memories of. It's what captivated me the most. I mean, Myers was captivating, but I didn't see a lot of it because we couldn't afford cable TV back then when I was a child, so it was all network TV, and every Friday the 13th. That Friday the 13th franchise were the most frequently played movies, so at least from my perspective. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Leatherface, you saw that every once in the blue moon, so I didn't really have an emotional attachment to that as much when I was younger. Freddy, same thing. You very rarely saw Freddy movies on network TV. That was like cable and shit, so it was a lot of the Jason stuff. So the Jason franchise were my favorite movies, particularly part 5, 6, And I like them all. I like 8. I like them all, man. And the look. And my favorite character. Well, back then I would probably say Jason. But right now I'm really into the Rob Zombie Myers, man. Particularly the Rob Zombie, like the hobo and the H1 and the H2. That's definitely on my. I think I'm actually quite obsessed with those characters and the look. So that's why, if you guys look over here, I have an RZ Dream Sequence version. I have a RZ Deborah's Son from the first flick, and I'm commissioning another RZ as we speak. I'm just putting the parts together with Tanelia's coveralls, and I got a Hobo Myers that's been in the works for almost 2 years now from one. So yeah, I'm pretty obsessed. So again, Michael, hopefully that answers your question. And the last question I have, which I'm probably not even going to be able to find, but I think I remember it. This comes from Odell. Let's see if I can find the actual. So I can't find the actual question. There's a lot of dialogue here, but basically, Odell's question was, what do I think about the reruns from a particular artist? Well, actually, I won't do any name shouts or whatever, but you know, actually, let's just get into it. He wants to know basically, what do I think about the reruns that's going on with Beto Metallic, okay, and all this stuff that's going on. So you got my answer might surprise a lot of you guys. I've taken a lot of time to think about this question over the years, and a few years ago, even a few months ago, I felt a certain way, and up to this point now, I feel another particular way. And Joe in his Freddy video kind of touched upon it a little bit. I had talked to Beto Metallic on the phone, literally on the phone, about this topic. I don't know, 6-8 months ago, and we recently talked about it again a couple of weeks ago. So this is how I look at the re-releases and the reruns and all that stuff. Keep in mind, guys, I have a Battle Damage Jason 4 coming. Technically, that is a re-release, you know. Technically. But with that being said, as collectors that are spending thousands of dollars on figures, ideally, we want our figures to be limited, and we want them to be untouched, because that creates the appeal of collecting them in the first place, and it makes us feel warm and fuzzy at night. It makes us sleep better knowing that, you know, whatever we just spent $4,000 or $5,000 on that could have went into our kids' college fund or something for the house or a new car or whatever, lawnmower, that we feel a lot better about that. So it's always been a kind of an unspoken rule or an expectation, kind of like an article among in the community, especially in the beginning, that, you know, if an artist released a figure, especially in a run with a COA, I'm not really talking about just a one-off figure, you know, with no COA, no box or anything like that, but like really an official run. The expectation was always, you know, it's numbered COA, you know, it's limited, and that's what we're buying it for, and it is what it is. But the cold reality is that that was never an official rule. No artist never agreed that they would or would not touch another figure, despite them releasing a run with a numbered COA. No artist that I know of has ever said that they'll do that to participate in the 1/6 hobby. Some artists take it upon themselves. Shout out to Raymond and K. Jun, which I respect. Their philosophy is once they do a project, that's it. They'll never do it again, regardless of how much money, regardless of your request. But not every artist is like that. And you can't really compare that artist that is willing to take that stance to another artist that is a little more flexible or looser, or just has a different philosophy, because you don't know what their situation is. You know, for instance, K. Jonah Rayman, they could have an additional job and they're not doing it. I'm not saying that they do, I'm saying hypothetically, it may not be their sole source of income in their livelihood. Someone like Beto Metallic or Once Customs, I believe they do, that's all they do. They do figures for a living. They don't have any supplemental income. So, so as much as I hate seeing re-releases of figures that I presumed would be limited and untouched, the reality is that at the end of the day, to be fair, we can't really say much about it, you know, because artists have to make a living, you know, and that's just the bottom line, especially in a post-COVID world where things are transitioning, and it seems like every day new rules, new policies, and a new way of living essentially is being introduced to us. Artists got to make money, and at the end of the day, I'd rather see an artist make money than not do anything at all. And that's really what it comes down to. In the past, I felt a little differently on that. I felt, you know, they shouldn't just be doing re-releases, period. But again, it's not fair to single out one artist over another, because there are a lot of artists in this hobby that do it, and there's a lot of artists in this hobby that don't do it. So you just can't single out one person like Beto Metalia or One's Customs or a Secret or whatever artist. So that's basically how I feel about it. I will say that ideally it would be nice to have some type of hindsight or indication that a figure is actually going to be touched again, or there's a potential, especially when you have a legit run with a numbered COA, because a COA, the point of a COA, at least from my interpretation, is that this is all there's going to be, you know, of this run. And I think it's assumed from many collectors that if you have a run of, you know, for instance, a run of Pennywise's 15 limited, and it's 10 on the COA, then that's it. It's going to be 10 Pennywise. You're not expecting to see another run of 10, etc., etc. But again, there's no set rule. There's no set rule. So you have to ask yourself, what is more important? The artist making nothing or doing re-releases? And you also have to ask yourself something important. Well, how the hell are you even collecting? Are you collecting because you're treating these figures like stocks and like investment commodities, or are you collecting these things because you actually love them? That's a whole different topic, in of itself. But I can only speak for myself. I love my figures. I don't give a damn if they're worth anything. Currently, you know, I estimated that I have over 120,000 in figures. You know, considering what they typically go for and stuff of that nature. But if they weren't worth anything, it wouldn't matter to me, and I legit mean that, and I don't care what anyone thinks. You guys know who you are, who I'm talking about, especially with all due respect. But that, again, that's just me. The reality is that I don't see these figures going down in value in any scenario for the foreseeable future, regardless of the amount of reruns. Because regardless of how many reruns we have, the reality is that a lot of these artists are motivated to do additional projects, and they can only make but so many figures. I mean, they're just a one-man operation. You know, you're not gonna see thousands of figures from a single person with the same character. So even if there's 40 or 50 or even 60 figures, it's still a limited figure. You know, 60 figures worldwide is still freaking pretty limited compared to 300,000 units of a statue or something. So at the end of the day, guys, I think we just got to get over it. And I told my mentor, like with the Battle 4, for instance, like, you know, we can be righteous and be like, oh, you know, I'm not going to buy this figure because, you know, it's a bad look for the hobby. I'm not going to support that. Well, there's 100 other people that are going to buy the figure. So I told the person that I was debating with, I was like, look, I'm going to get the Battle 4 because I want the figure. There's no point in me being righteous, because no matter how righteous I am, that figure is going to sell to somebody. And when I do get it, if I want to get a second hand, I'm going to have to pay double or triple for it. That ain't happening. I'm not stupid. I can be righteous I'm trying to keep my money. I'm trying to do what I need to do. And if no one else is being righteous, then it is what it is. I don't think it's going to hurt the hobby overall. I really don't. Just because it's just too few artists out here anyway. So with that being said, guys, that's going to complete the Q&A. I'm going to go get these names and throw them shits in a hat, and then we're going to find out what did. All right, guys, we are back, and we're going to do the drawing now for. Go back and let you guys see what we have going on right here. We have some One's Customs keychains.
I think they retailed back in 2015 for $30, $40 shipped. Easily $100 worth right now. You guys can see them. So these are what I'm going to raffle off for the lucky persons that participated in this Q&A. So, like I said, I think it's just time to give back a little bit and wanted to do something a little fun. And so let's see what's popping. What I did was I put names of everyone that participated. I got about 16, 17 people. And I balled up the names. I got a cup, long cup, so I can get a nice little mix. There's gonna be no cuts in this footage, so everything is legit. You guys notice I have no balls on me. Everything is inside the cup. So basically I'm going to shake it up, make it nice and fair, and I'm just gonna pull two names up. I'm gonna pull first name right here. I'm gonna do another shake. Make this legit. Other name right here. So, cup away. All right, so let's see who won. Alrighty, so first name, Ryan Rose. Ryan Rose is a winner. Congratulations, you just won a super rare One's Customs keychain. Second name is Darren Whitehead. I'm butchering that name. Darren Whitehead. So again, Darren Whitehead and Ryan Rose, you guys are the winners of these keychains. Now, again, I will be doing something like this again. So for anyone that didn't win, don't worry. I'm gonna do something like this again in the future, and we'll have some more fun. So there's two versions here. Both are great. Whoever PMs me first has dibs on which one they want first. I will not announce this in the group who won. You need to watch this video to see if you won or not. And again, whoever PMs me first gets first dibs. So again, guys, appreciate everyone that has watched this video. I hope that you got something from it. I had a lot of fun doing this video and answering everyone's questions. Wasn't expecting the amount of questions that I got to be as detailed and intricate as they were, so I appreciated that, and I hope everybody learned something. So, until next time, I'll holla. All right, peace.